Black woman slept on the plane, until the captain asked, terrified, any fighter pilot on board. The cabin froze, passengers glanced wildly at one another, and panic spread as the engines trembled under a sudden emergency. Fear clung to every breath, the flight crew scrambling for answers, the captain's voice cracking with urgency. In that moment, hundreds of lives depended on someone, anyone, who had the skill to take control. Nobody expected the quiet woman in row 17 to stand. Nobody knew that the very person society overlooked, doubted, and dismissed was the only one who could save them all at 30,000 feet. She had boarded the flight quietly, blending into the sea of business travelers and vacationers. Her seat was by the window, her jacket pulled close, her head leaning against the side as exhaustion claimed her. To most, she was just another passenger, someone invisible in the shuffle of boarding passes and carry-ons. But her story stretched far beyond what anyone on that plane could imagine. Her childhood was a series of battles. Growing up in a neighborhood where opportunity rarely knocked, she had learned discipline early. Books became her escape, and ambition became her armor. From a young age, she gazed at the sky with wonder, not as a passenger longing for escape, but as a future pilot craving freedom. She wanted to command the very machines that roared above her head. But when she voiced her dream, the world tried to laugh her back into silence. Teachers doubted her. Friends whispered it was impossible. Recruiters questioned her fit. She was told in 1,000 subtle ways that a black girl didn't belong in cockpits, let alone fighter jets. Yet she pushed forward. Through scholarships, relentless study, and endless hours of training, she carved out a place where she was never meant to be. The military became her proving ground. There, she faced even sharper edges of racism and sexism. Peers doubted her skill before she touched a control. Instructors held her to higher standards, always waiting for a mistake to confirm their bias. But she didn't break. She logged thousands of hours, mastered maneuvers that made even seasoned pilots sweat, and earned medals for her precision and courage. She soared at speeds that blurred the horizon, danced her jet through storms, and stared down danger without flinching. She was a fighter pilot. A real one. Yet when her service ended, the world outside didn't see her achievements. To strangers, she was just another black woman, subject to the same dismissals, the same underestimation, the same erasure of identity. Her wings had been earned, but her worth was still questioned by those who looked only at her skin. Now she was just another traveler, worn out from a week of work, asleep on a flight that was supposed to be ordinary. Until alarms in the cockpit shattered that illusion. The captain's voice came through again, more desperate, a technical failure, worsening turbulence, and a need for someone with combat flight experience, someone who could guide them through what civilian pilots weren't trained for. The words, any fighter pilot on board, rang out like a prayer. Passengers looked around nervously. Some speculated aloud. Surely, if a pilot were here, he'd stand up. Their eyes scanned for someone older, maybe a white man in a blazer, someone who fit their image of authority. No one expected her. But she rose from row 17. Slowly, steadily, she stood. I can help, she said. The reaction was instant, disbelief. Some gasped, others scoffed under their breath. A few rolled their eyes. Even one flight attendant hesitated, unsure whether to believe her. Bias echoed louder than the captain's plea. Her? Could she really? Yet she walked forward with quiet confidence. She didn't need their approval. She had faced far worse doubt before. And when she stepped into the cockpit, the entire mood shifted. The scene inside was chaos. Warning lights blinked, alarms screamed, and the crew's faces were etched with panic. But she was calm. Her eyes scanned the panels, her mind mapping out possibilities. Her voice was steady, firm, the same voice that once cut through the roar of engines and the chaos of combat. She began issuing instructions, quick and precise, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. The pilots listened. The crew obeyed. And slowly, the aircraft began to respond. The climax came as the plane neared a maneuver that could mean life or death. Turbulence ripped through the cabin, passengers clutched armrests, some crying, others whispering frantic prayers. In row after row, people who had doubted her now held their breath, their lives in her hands. She remembered every drill, every emergency landing she had ever performed, every night spent in a simulator with sweat dripping down her back. Drawing from instinct honed through years of survival, she made the call. The aircraft dipped, swayed, and then leveled. The alarms silenced. The cabin stilled. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of steady breathing and the captain's trembling announcement: they were safe. Hundreds of lives had just been saved by the woman the passengers had dismissed minutes before. When the plane landed safely, relief erupted. Applause thundered through the cabin, some passengers crying, others cheering. Yet mixed in the claps were the stares, some apologetic, others still laced with disbelief. Even in the face of undeniable truth, bias clung stubbornly. She didn't need their validation. She knew who she was. She had been a fighter long before she sat in that cockpit. News of the incident spread. Headlines spoke of the unexpected hero. Commentators marveled at how unlikely it was that a black woman had been the one to save the day, as if her brilliance was a miracle instead of the result of years of sacrifice. The irony wasn't lost on her. The world celebrated her courage in crisis but still struggled to believe women like her belonged in those roles at all. She returned to her life quietly, without fanfare. She didn't seek the spotlight. She sought only the knowledge that hundreds of families hugged their loved ones that night because she had stood when no one believed she could. She had carried them through a storm the same way she had carried herself through a lifetime of doubt. The passengers would never forget the day a black woman rose from row 17 and saved their lives. Some left changed, humbled by the realization of their own prejudice. Others shrugged it off, unwilling to confront their bias. But she didn't need them to change. She had already proven her truth. If a black woman society tried to silence could save an entire plane at 30,000 feet, imagine what could happen if we stopped underestimating people and started listening to them. The next time you're tempted to dismiss someone because of who they are or what they look like, ask yourself, what life-saving power are you ignoring?